Dracaena zeylanica is the solid green without the yellow edges. And then there's Sansevieria Hanai, which is the little dwarf kind of bird's nest looking one. There's Sansevieria Apollo, which has big white stripes up and down in the leaves. Actually about 50 different kinds of these things.
Do they still, is the care still the
Care
same?
is identical on all of them.
Oh, okay.
And if you go to North Africa, you'll see these things. I've never been, but I've seen pictures of them growing in the deserts. They have Sansevieria gigantea that has leaves about this wide and about 15 feet tall. All of these, all these things grow wild somewhere. And in the jungle, they're probably going to be pretty big. If they're a jungle plant, if they're a desert plant, they're going to look totally different, than what we see. We have these little miniature versions we grow in our houses. This little plant, Araucaria excelsa, most commonly called the Norfolk Island pine, go to Hawaii and look up on the ridges, look up on the polys. See, these things about 150 feet tall growing up there. I don't like it as a house plant. I guess it's okay if you have to have a living Christmas tree. It's fine as a patio plant, but inside, it's hard to give it enough light. It is very prone to spider mites, and it gets too big. It's a very short period of time before it's up rubbing against the ceiling. Now, if you have a 20-foot atrium, fine, grow one of these things in there if you like it. But then I should have talked about this is when we were talking about light with plants, is light doesn't go around corners very well. And so you stick this thing in front of a window that's about this tall, and the plant does fine growing until it gets up to about this tall. But all of a sudden when it gets up here, light doesn't come in and do this. All of a sudden the top of that plant's not getting any light. Only the bottom of it is, and the plant ceases to do as well. Yes?
Is that a very bright light plant then?
Very bright light plant. Yes.
That explains my problem with it.
Good. Whereas we've already accomplished one good thing today. Keep it on the dry side. Those are the two secrets to growing Norfolk pine. Lots of light, and let it get pretty dry between waterings. If you do those two things, you'll do fine with it. But you're going to be chopping a hole in the ceiling if you want it to really stay and do well. Yes, sir?
I have a cat that likes to gnaw on plants. Any of these can be poisonous or harmful?
I'll tell you the ones that are, if we come to any of them that are.
Thank you.
Most of the philodendrons are mildly toxic, but I don't think there's anything in your house really. They're much more dangerous things in your house to your kitty cat than any of the plants will be. By the way, all of y'all that have cats and things like that, something I learned a while back from my buddy Dr. Kirby, and hopefully everybody flosses your teeth. My dentist has a sign up in his office that says you don't have to floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep. And dental floss is deadly to cats. Don't put it where cats can get to it, because you know how they are about eating string and things like that. It'll get wrapped around parts of their intestines and things like that. It will be a very expensive surgery. So dispose of your dental floss some other way. Don't leave it in the trash can or out where the kitty cats can get it. Crotons, pretty plants for a real sunny window, but if you don't have bright light, don't try growing crotons indoors. If you have bright light and you want the color, get one of the newer, and you just need to ask the people you're getting them from, one of the newer, more modern crotons, Croton Petra, Croton Norma. Some of these are some of the newer varieties that don't take as much light. The old-fashioned crotons had to have direct sunlight most of the day to do very well at all, so they were absolutely not good as house plants. These still need very bright light if you have them indoors, but they will do fine for a while. Again, with crotons, the one issue with them is that they can get spider mites. Try to keep them as healthy as possible. Keep them out of. No plant really likes a strong draft, hot or cold. Ceiling fans are good for people and bad for plants. So again, try not to have your plants right under where you have a ceiling fan running, or that will be a problem to them. Ficus. The ficus family is a big family of plants. This is one of several varieties of Ficus benjamina. This one has just the solid green leaves. There's Ficus spearmint that has a variegated green and white leaf. Ficus decora is what you commonly call a rubber plant. Ficus pangerata is what you commonly call a fiddle leaf fig. Lots of different kinds of ficus, but in general they have two needs in common. Lots of light and never ever getting dry. If you let a ficus get too dry, it will drop leaves for 6 weeks afterwards, even after you start watering it properly. And if you don't give it enough light, it will not be happy. Now, it's not going to drop leaves just all of a sudden because it's not getting enough light. If you've got a ficus tree that's dropping a lot of leaves, it probably was grown in much brighter light, and then you brought it inside. The old wives' tale is, oh, ficus trees don't like to be moved. Ficus trees could care less about being moved as long as you keep the light the same. But if you move one from brighter light to lower light, it's going to drop leaves for quite some time afterwards. And if it ever gets dry, it will drop leaves for about 6 weeks. So they're plants you really want to pay a little bit more attention to. But they're fast growing, which tends to make them among the less expensive of the house plants. So they're obviously very popular plants, but also they're probably one of the 2 most frequently grown plants that are grown in very bright light, sold by grocery stores and box stores, and sent home to die in your home. Buy them shade grown, give them the proper light and water, and they make excellent plants. And don't hesitate to cut them back when they get too big. They will drip. They have milky sap. So move them outside, unless you're on a ceramic tile floor or something like that that you can clean up. Because when you prune on these things, and you can see this one's been pretty well pruned not too terribly long ago, they're going to drip a milky sap for some time afterwards. They are in the same family that rubber is made from. The quote rubber tree, yes, the latex is in the sap, and back in the old days, that's what all your rubber was made from. But they do get big. In nature, they do get large. The largest one of these things that I ever saw was in Jamaica. It's probably 100 feet tall and 150 feet wide. I saw, many years ago, I was down in the Yucatan in central Mexico, and the road, who had gone down there, and I'd grown up reading my grandparents' National Geographics about Chichen Itza and the wells at Chichen Itza, and had an opportunity to go see those, which was a lot of fun. And the bus is going along the highway, and the rubber trees have grown up and made a solid, mass up above. The rubber trees were probably easily 60, 70 feet tall. All these ficus get big, so if they're never going to get full size in your house, and you can prune them when they start getting too big, because if you get good plants and care for them properly, all of a sudden you're going to find out that ficus trees are really easy house plants if you have enough light. They're one of the most trouble-free house plants. But again, 2 secrets: lots of light, and don't ever let them dry out.
How cold can they get?
Depends on the variety. Most ficus trees, the Benjaminas, the rubber plant, the fiddle-leaf fig, really don't want to go below freezing. There are some there's one that looks fairly similar to this, if you don't know what you're looking at. They call a banyan tree, Ficus retusa nitida. I guess a lot of people have been into Hawaii. If you've ever been to Hilo, there's a series right along the bayfront there of these huge, what they call banyan trees, and they're named for different people. They were named back in World War II. And those things are a little more cold hardy. They will take middle 20s without any damage. But Benjaminas, you don't want them to freeze.
Well, I have a rubber tree or plant that's very big. And when can you cut them back?
Spring is the best time to cut them back if you need to.
Okay, next spring.
Okay. The other thing that you can do if you want to make more, ficus trees are one of the trees that are very easily air layer. You can do where you take, I don't really have one to show you on, where you split the bark on the side, or just take a gouge out of the side, out of the bark, wrap it with sphagnum moss, long fibered sphagnum like we line hanging baskets with, wrap it up, moist sphagnum moss, wrap it up, put some aluminum foil and crimp the foil top and bottom, and it will put roots out into that sphagnum moss, and then you can just cut it off below that point, peel the foil off, and you've got a pre-rooted cutting. Rubber plants, fiddle-leaf figs, Ficus benjamina, among the easiest of all plants to air layer, as are this kind of Dracaena. I'll never forget a couple of times I've been to Hawaii, driving through an area one time, and it just caught your eye. It was almost like Christmas decorations. There was a field of plants that were just covered with tinfoil. What they were was this plant, and they had air layers all over them, thousands upon thousands of air layers. that they were air layering on their plants that were growing in the field, then they moved them into the greenhouse and the lower light areas to grow them out. But anyway, air layering is very successful on these.
Is scale always a problem?